Here we are. I'm Tom Osman, and this is Whatever Comes Next, the podcast where I explore the world of underground and independent music making. And on today's episode, I am talking with Rich Griffith, songwriter and lead guitarist for surf punk band The Balboas, who this Friday are releasing their latest album, Bite, Blood, Repeat, on Burn and Surf Records. And this is a fun record. And this is a band that has a lot of interesting history and connections, one of which being their long connection to surf guitar legend Dick Dale. In fact, the whole origin of the band goes back to a meeting with Dick Dale. And indeed, the band even includes now Jimmy Dale, Dick Dale's son, as well as also featuring Dusty Watson, who was Dick Dale's drummer for a long time. And there are all kinds of other interesting connections and stories. Mike Watt appears on the record, and Paul Roessler, brother of Kira Roessler, is involved in the record as well. There's a song that the band did with the 5678s, who appeared on Kill Bill. And coincidentally, the album's coming out this Friday. There's also this special edition of Kill Bill that's coming out this Friday. There are some other Tarantino connections. Lots of cool stories. The band's been going since the 90s, and I thought there are going to be all kinds of interesting insights to glean from Rich. And there were, in terms of the music that they grew up with, the different styles that they've incorporated, the influence of bands like the B-52s and the Dead Kennedys, and then also some of Rich's insights in terms of touring, shows, merchandise, basically the landscape of the music business as it is just now. I'm going to play a song from the album. I think it's the opening track I'm going to play, Bury It With You, if I remember correctly, at the end of this interview with a little clip coming up just now. You can follow me on all social media at Tom Osman Sounds. You can go to my website, tomosmansounds.com, if you want to check out my music. You can go to patreon.com/whatever comes next if you'd like to check out some extended interviews of recent weeks. And I think that is just about it. I am going to hand over to Rich in a moment. So, Rich of the Balboas, take it away.
Tom, where are you at right now?
So when we spoke before, I was in Glasgow, which is where I live. I'm actually just in Oxford right now.
Okay, great. That's cool. I haven't been to that part of the world in a while, but Glasgow is fantastic. Last time I was there, I had so much fun.
Yeah.
And I think I was there for 4 or 5 days, and my face was so tired from smiling and laughing.
Oh,
When I
that's
got
great to
home, I
hear.
thought
Yeah.
I thought I had like a toothache or something because I had so much fun.
I feel like Glasgow does have a very special quality. Like people always like wax lyrical about well, not everyone, but a lot of people wax lyrical about where they live. But I do feel like Glasgow has got something about it that you don't get like from other parts of Scotland.
Well, it's different completely, without a doubt. The accent alone, it's clear for me that you're not from there because I can understand you. Whereas I remember, and it's the most beautiful thing you've ever heard in your life. It sounds like a song, but it's really hard for a U.S. American to discern words when someone is speaking fast in Glasgow. Just a different form of English.
Yeah,
And
for
and
sure.
it's yeah.
Yeah, like I came from Australia originally and moved back and forth a bit. And it's funny because part of my childhood was spent in Aberdeen in the north of Scotland. And that was confusing. And after 10 years of that, I thought, right, I've cracked the Scottish accent. And then I came to Glasgow. I was like, what is this? This is
Yeah,
different all
yeah,
over
yeah,
again.
yeah. Yep. I haven't spent a ton of time there, but what I did, I loved. And I was in Glasgow for a bit and then going to Edinburgh. And those were like two different worlds, just
Yep.
in terms of the vibe and the accent and everything else. So, but I really enjoyed it. I haven't been there in some time now. I won a Highland Games competition when I was there with the caber. Uh,
Oh, like
and
tossing the caber over the line.
No, no, it was the one with the. I thought it was called caber. Maybe I'm wrong. It was a a long broadsword, and you had to hold it out with your arms straight.
Ah,
And
okay.
uh, and I won by just a few seconds. And there were people who were quite pissed at me. It was not a friendly congratulations that I got. We'll put it that way. But it was great. We had such a fun time there. Such a fun time. Sorry to wax on about it, but I
No,
travel a
that's
lot
great.
and I love places when I go, and that's one that definitely stuck with me.
No, I like it. And so, like, yeah, I was going to bring up, different locations because from what I understand, the Balboas are spread out all
It's
over the
true.
place. And I think
Yep, yep.
you were formed in Akron, is that right?
Correct. Akron, Ohio. It's a little steel Rust Belt town, very industrial, and a bunch of us happened to be there for graduate school. We were getting our graduate degrees, and the band formed in a really strange way. I could talk to you more about that, but we were only in Akron together for what was months. And
Hmm.
as we then moved apart for our careers, we started thinking like, boy, this is really fun. Maybe we'll record a record. We have all these songs. Let's record a record. And then once we got a record done, we said, well, let's go on tour. We should tour with the record. And never thinking it would just keep happening. It really was just sort of we were doing what was in front of us in the moment in Akron. And then the next thing you know, 30 years have passed and we're still doing it.
Yeah.
And we figured out how to be very productive by living in different cities, which is hard if you're a band because we literally never practice. We just, that doesn't happen. So we have to, individually prepare for whatever event is coming up. And then we go in and then, if you're lucky, you might get an afternoon to kind of at least get on the same page. But sometimes we don't. Sometimes you go right to the stage and you gotta get it right. You got to get it right. And so it's a different way to run a band. It's completely different, but it's great. We found a way to make it work.
So there's like a couple of different things. So first of all, like I really enjoy the forthcoming album, Bite Blood Repeat. I
Oh, I'm
think
glad.
this
Thanks.
is this is unfortunately not a direct compliment for you, but I think particularly your rhythm section is really great. Like
I have the best in the world.
obviously like rhythm sections are incredibly important, and like the
Yeah.
the underpinning of the drums and the bass in the band and on the record allows everything to take its place on top of it. It's just like track by
Yep. Yep.
track, like just the drumming, like the rolls and everything, just like it's so beautiful and crisp, and like these
Yep.
beautiful bass grooves that go with it as well. So yeah, very enjoyable to listen to.
I do. I am the luckiest man in the world in that the rhythm section I have. So I don't know if you know Dusty Watson, but Dusty is our drummer.
And he
And
was the
Dusty,
drummer for Dick Dale, is that right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. He played with Dick Dale and he played with the Sonics. He's played with everybody under the sun, and he's got a good punk pedigree too. And then Katie O'Shea is our bass player. She's a monster. She might be the best musician in the whole band. Rick Friedman is on rhythm guitar, and then Jimmy Dale has joined the band. Sometimes he's on lead, sometimes he's playing rhythm underneath on me, but he is so precise. So when you get that combination, it's a joy. I could do anything and it's going to sound fine.
And I wanted to ask you, like, to clarify Jimmy Dale's involvement because
Yeah.
I think, like, on your first record, you've got a song called Son of Dale, Jimmy
Yeah, yeah,
Dale.
yeah.
But I
Yep.
wasn't sure at what point he actually became a member of the band.
Yep. Yep. So to fill you in on that, that's the first song that Balboas ever wrote. And it was right after meeting Dick Dale. We weren't the Balboas yet. So we were going to see a show and my car broke down. And we ended up in a car park. And I said, boy, wouldn't it be cool if Dick Dale came by and picked us up and took us to the next show? And sure as shit, his RV pulls into there, and Jimmy Dale head is hanging out the window, shaggy little waggy hair. He's 3 years old at this stage, and so Dick lets us in his RV. We meet Jimmy, we meet Dick. He puts us on the guest list for life, and really, 25 years later, Jimmy is becoming what is a personality in this area of surf. He always was. He's the crown prince of surf in many ways, and he can play every bit as good as his old man on the guitar, and he is damn good on the drums. Very rarely would you hear me say someone is better than Dusty Watson, but he's right there. He's amazing on the drums, and we sort of knew him through the family, if you will, because the surf community is pretty small. So Dusty one day says, "Hey, why don't we have Jimmy come in and start doing some stuff with this?" So we start talking together, and Jimmy seems to like hanging out with us, and we're having fun, and so Jimmy's just on board, and it's completely a full circle moment in that the Balboas form by seeing Jimmy Dale's head hanging out a window, and then 25 years later, he's our guitar player.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, it is wild. It's kind of hard to get your head around in some ways, but like that story is just the Balboa story in a nutshell. There's a million things that happen like that. We just have these odd occurrences that are just lovely, but Jimmy's maybe the best one.
So you've now touched on the surf community. So tell me a bit more about this because this is an area that I really don't know a lot about. So what to you from a musical point of view is the surf community? And in fact, I was going to ask you as well because
Yeah,
all relating to the label Burn and Surf Records, I was going to ask, do you surf?
I do. I do. I'm somewhat retired, but I live in Florida, so I live about 100 meters from the beach. So I surf. It doesn't have a ton to do with the music, but the origins of it, one version of it it's a complex story in a lot of ways, but one version is that Dick Dale is the originator of this sound, and that he started playing to surfers at what was the Balboa Ballroom, and they were really into him, so they sort of adopt this style of music. And many people equate the instrumental sound to what is the feeling you get in the ocean, and it can be that way because there's some gentle surf that is just sort of rocking you to sleep. It's old man prom surf. Like we don't like that surf. We don't do that. Or then you have the Dick Dale surf, which will just kick your ass. And anybody who's been in the oceans when it's rough, that's Dick Dale. Is you just are hanging on for your dear life because that guy's the level of power that he had in his guitar was it's unmatched. Since then he's really quite a force of nature. So yeah, the surf community, you have the surfers, and that's one side of it, and then you have the surf community, which are the people who are playing this kind of music in some ways. We're on the outskirts of both in that surfers kind of like us, the surfer skaters like us when we are having our punk sound. The more we lean
Yeah.
into our punk sound, they love that. But the surf guitar community hates that. They're really like, some guy told me the other week, "Oh, Rich, you're very distorted." I'm like, "Yeah, no shit, I'm a Balboa. Good God, what do you expect from me?" And if we lean into surf, then the surfers hate us. So you just we walked the line. We walked the line.
Yeah, it's interesting because as soon as you talked about skating, I thought, oh, well, there's a direct link to the punk guys like Ian MacKaye and Henry
Yeah,
Rollins.
totally, totally. Agent Orange, like Mike Palm friend of ours. We've opened for Agent Orange a bunch of times. What kid hasn't skated to Agent Orange? Every kid in the world has skated to Agent Orange. So, it works really well, and they seem to like it when it goes down that path. When we're playing really hard, really fast, and they're into it.
And touching further on that punk connection, so you've got Paul Roessler
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
now. Is it Kira Roessler's cousin or brother? I forgot.
Brother,
Brother,
brother. Yeah,
who
yeah, yeah.
obviously was in Black Flag. So, like, what is actually his involvement? Is he playing on the whole record?
This time he practically does. I think there's one or two songs he's not on. But Paul is our producer. We've been recording with Paul about a decade now out in LA, and as you know, he's recorded everybody under the sun in the punk world. That guy is really renowned for producing, but he was also the keyboard player for the Screamers and 45 Grave, and he just runs in that community. So you gain the benefit of Paul as being on the boards, being a technician, an engineer on the boards. You gain the benefit of his ear, which is immaculate, and then he's smart. He figured out our sound pretty quick. So he knows what we want to do and he sets that up. But he's also an incredible keyboard player. So we'll turn to Paul and just say, "Hey, Paul, we were thinking about having," and he doesn't even let you finish the sentence. Oh, something like this. Doodle, 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 doodle. And this would be absolutely perfect. And then Paul will spend hours perfecting it. So we were really lucky on this album. I was laughing the other day. I said, "Paul, man, I got to get you a suit and tie because you are a Balboa through and through, man." And he was like, "I'm down, man. I'm down." So we'd love to have him.
So you mentioned that when you first met Dick Dale and Jimmy Dale, you didn't actually have the name. So when did the suit and tie become the visual component of the band?
Oh, really early, actually. So when we first started, if you think about it, the Balboas are, mid 90s, late 90s kind of origin, which is grunge. So the first shows that we played a lot of punk shows where what I was wearing at night was what I woke up in that morning,
Yeah.
just pair of jeans and shirt, get up, do it. And then uh I think it was our original drummer that said, "Hey, well, let's start wearing suits." But he wanted to wear like blue suits with moons and stars painted on them. I was like, "Fuck that. I'm not doing that. We're going to wear black suits." It's coming right out of Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
So it was like a natural thing to do. And especially early in the Balboa's days, like I'm a kindler, gentler, older Balboa now, but we didn't used to be. We're all just tattooed and old, a bunch of punks. You get five dudes that walk into a place with black suits on, it scares the shit out of everybody. And they pay attention all of a sudden. So we learned, oh, let's start showing up in our suits rather than in clothes, and people won't ever know. And so it became like a persona. It's
Yep.
like my second skin that I wear when I'm a Balboa, and it gives me license to do whatever I want. And so that's just kind of part of our vibe is the suit. It turned
Yeah.
into being more than just clothes that you wore. It really did change the way we interacted with people.
Yeah, that's really interesting because like I've interviewed people before that wear masks in bands on stage, and I've been interested to explore what that kind of does for them, or people that have particular outfits that they wear. And like even someone that I haven't interviewed him directly, but Jazz Coleman from Killing Jokes, I'm a huge Killing Joke fan. And I think from
Yeah.
other interviews with him, I've gathered, like the face paint that he does is very much like kind of a ritualistic thing to like get him in that mode. So I can see it makes sense that a suit as well could have that kind of impact as well.
Yeah, it works. It works. I'm a different person in the suit if I put the suit on, and the way we interact with people is different. And what it does too is it adds this element of mystique that when we get on stage, people don't really know what to expect. And all of a sudden they're like, "Whoa, that wasn't what I thought was going to happen." And that plays to our favor. So yeah, there's something about the suit that completely changed the Balboa vibe. And
Yeah.
really early, we played maybe three, four gigs, in what we call civilian clothes, and then we switched into the suit.
So I do want to talk more about Tarantino now that you brought him up, but going back
Yeah.
to the punk topic first of all. So like I guess when all those sort of hardcore bands like Minor Threat and Bad Brains and Black Flag were doing the rounds, I guess you would have been a kid at that point. So
Yeah. You know, preteen
preteen, okay.
at that stage. So, I think we started high school in 1980. So I'm just a kid really when this stuff is coming out.
So at what point did that stuff start to make an impact on you?
I was a drummer in a punk band in Youngstown, Ohio called Def Mosaic, and those guys were all into what was, at the time you heard Lou Reed and it was Talking Heads, and it started to seep in then. Like I could tell this is different. There's an energy about this that I really like. And then I stumbled into Agent Orange. It's how it is when you're into punk. You just go into a record store and oh, here's this album. Well, I don't know what this is. I'll buy it. It's $1. So God, living in darkness. And then once I heard that, it completely melted my brain. It's just the combination of surf and punk I had never heard before. And it was really super, super, super powerful. So really, you know, early to mid 80s, I'm starting to be influenced by this. Late 80s, I'm waist deep in it. And then I had an opportunity to do some stuff with the Balboas, and we started thinking about what is the perfect blend for all of this, the stuff that we like, which was surf and punk. And there's different brands of punk. There's Ramones and Misfits and Cramps. The Cramps are a huge influence on us.
I
So
did think,
it's,
I thought, because there's kind of like that 50s horror kitsch aspect as well that made me think of the Cramps at certain points.
yeah, I never think about the horror kitsch, but that's part of our vibe. And Katie has brought that in. Katie has a whole, bag of spells and every herb to burn in the house. You walk into her house, you feel like you're in what is the Victorian era in her house. So she's kind of brought a lot of that in. And yeah, the rockabilly surf stuff matches. And then the other element, I don't know if you picked up on, but at least subconsciously for us, it's a big part of it, is the double entendre of the Cramps. I mean, they're talking about fucking the entire time that they're singing, and they never say anything
Yeah.
nasty. It's always tongue in cheek. And there's Mark's got a bit of that where he just his turn of the phrase. He's always talking about something that you really wouldn't want to be talking about at the dinner table, but you wouldn't know by listening to the words.
Yeah, well, I mean, just from like the titles, like as soon as I saw Muff Cake, I thought like, all right.
Yeah, you know what that song's about. But if you listen to it, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
And Mark describes us to be, I was chuckling when he said it. He's like, well, Rich, imagine if you were like Willy Wonka walking through just a Wonka Vision version of vaginas. That's what this song is about. And I was like, oh, perfect, perfect. That song came up. Marky Ramone sent Katie, our bass player, a birthday wish, and he said something it's in the song. If you dig through it, you could find it. And he says something like, "I'll have a slice." And in my head, I thought, that's a perfect bit I need to use in a song. And I started thinking about what would be a good title for that. And I was like, Muff Cake. That's it. So I
Yeah.
should give Marky Ramone like songwriting credits for that song because he definitely is one of the origins of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's funny as well, like the having brought up the double entendres, because one of the things that I noticed incidentally, and I wasn't really quite sure what to make of it, but now there's sort of more context to it, is looking in the press release, there was some mention of how like this album does not contain any swearing or like there's no bad language. And I thought that's an interesting thing to like explicitly say. But now
Yeah,
I can see
yeah.
why you would say that because it's kind of like there's allusions to things, but there's no explicit reference to them.
Yeah, and when you're putting on a record now, at least in the United States, the FCC wants to know that. Is there any explicit language in the record? And of course, we have records that have language that's a little rough, but not much. It's all really just under the layer.
Yep.
But if you listen to it, geez, there's stuff I wouldn't even want to tell you what it's about. If I did, I'd blush. But it's you don't have to scratch deep. We'll put it that way. But you got to pay
Yeah.
attention. You got to pay attention.
Another thing, just like while we're on sort of reference points and inspiration, I wondered partly because your vocalist Mark Healy reminded me a
Yeah,
little bit of Fred Schneider from the
absolutely.
B-52s. So I wondered if
Yeah.
there was a bit of a B-52s thing going on for you.
Absolutely. So he's going to be really happy to even to hear you say that. So Fred is, clearly an idol of his, and Jello is an idol of his. Lux Interior is an idol of his. So you hear him, and what he does is he switches gears. He'll have a little Lux that'll be in this song, and then he might switch over to Fred, and sometimes it's a blend of what's
Yeah.
going on. I would say there's even just a tad bit of Lou Reed that comes in there. Sometimes he hits you with what is a cold line. It's vocals, but
Yeah.
it's not singing per se.
Yeah, Lou Reed, what a fascinating character.
Lou's cool. I love Lou.
So having talked about surf, having talked about skaters, let's talk a bit more about Tarantino. So you
Sure.
mentioned the reference point with the suits. Obviously, you've got the I say obviously too much in interviews. It's not necessarily obvious, but you've got the Ghost of Go-Go with the 5, 6, 7, 8s.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tell
What a
me,
great opportunity.
yeah. So like, tell me how that came about, and tell me about
Sure.
the impact of Tarantino on you and the band.
Yeah. So in terms of the Ghost to Go-Go, as I mentioned, the surf guitar community is really small. It's maybe 10,000 of us on the whole planet. It's not a lot of folks. So you get to know people. And I was chatting with what was a friend of Jimmy. His name is Lorenzo. Lorenzo is like the surf ambassador for this music. He plays in Japan a lot, and I love Japan. So we were just chatting about Japan. And I said, "Oh, do you know the 5, 6, 7, 8?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, would you mind making an introduction?" So he introduces us. And I said, "Well, we're getting ready to work on this record. We're putting together a record called Live in Japan. I can tell you more about that. That's going to be a fun project down the line. And would you be interested in doing a song with us?" And they said, "Sure, sure, sure." So I said, "Well, here's this song I'd like to do. It's called Ghost to Go Go, and it's tied into what is Kill Bill. Would you guys be interested in doing that?" And they said, "Sure." Uh, and they're great. I mean, they did what was the opening sample, and then it carries through the song a little bit. But to be playing with the 5, 6, 7, 8s on a Kill Bill related song, and then after we had put it together, there's this news of the whole bloody affair coming out on December 5th, which is the date that we had chosen to release the record.
All right, so you'd actually already chosen that date before you found that
Absolutely.
out. That's
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely. It's only like a month ago when this news comes out. And I thought, oh, this is a sign from the gods. This is just perfect. Because I just love the way the song came out. And they were just really lovely to work with, the nicest people ever. Because I'm just some stranger, just some schmo who contacts them and says, "Hey, do you want to do a record? Oh, by the way, it's related to this movie you were in." It seems like I'm just glomming on. And the weight of that is not lost on me, but it really wasn't intentional. It just sort of unfolded in a lot of ways. Tarantino is everything to us. I mean, if you think so, there would be no Balboas if there was no Tarantino. In that, Dick Dale, prior to Pulp Fiction, he's a recluse. He's living out in the desert with his tigers and lions and like all kind of crazy shit at that point in time. This is the wildest Dick Dale you're ever going to meet when you meet him in his mid 50s. He is full on out there, man. And but great, really good dude, very nice to us. But uh, he no one was ever going to hear Dick Dale again. He was going to be out in the desert just doing his thing, and all of a sudden, Pulp Fiction comes along. Well, Dick Dale gets on the road, and he hadn't been on the road in 20 years. He, was playing Reno and stuff like that, but he wasn't on the road. I was a huge Dick Dale fan, so I just told all the guys who then they are now the Balboas, but weren't then. I just said, "Dude, we are getting in a car and we're going to drive and see every show we can because I don't know when that dude's going back to the desert. I'm not missing anything." So we started traveling around with Dick Dale, and that's how all of this really started. Is that he one day, stops at the rest stop. He puts us on the guest list for life. And then we're going to shows. Next thing you know, we're opening for Dick Dale, and we get to meet Dusty. Dusty is a dear friend and a great mentor and an incredible drummer. So if there's no Tarantino, none of that happens. I don't even know
Yeah.
what my life would look like. Uh, so it's crazy how it's all again these full circle moments we keep having. Back to Tarantino. So it's not like that song's going to be in the movie, but who cares? Who
Yeah. No,
cares at
no, I
this
mean
point?
those connections, that interconnectedness really is crazy.
It's really wild. It's really wild. And again, we made good friends because Sachiko and Ronnie and Akiko, I told them flat out, whatever you guys want, you ever need anything, you got it. Come to us, we'll help you out. And we have what is a really tight network of these people around the world that are playing this kind of music. So, it's good to have friends in different places.
So you've talked about the fact that you don't rehearse and you're all living in different parts
Yeah.
of the US, right?
Yep. Yep. But sometimes around the world, like
Yeah, that's
we
why I
could be in Europe at
hesitated
any
because I
point in
thought,
time.
yeah.
Anytime. Europe and the United States, we're primarily going to be.
And it seems also as well that the lineup of the band has remained pretty consistent
Yeah, yeah,
given the amount of time you've been going. So tell me a bit about that. Like, how have you made that work from a practical point of view, and where have you ended up as the
yeah,
Balboas around the world?
yeah. So like I said, we formed in a very traditional way, like bands just drinking beers on a Saturday and practicing in a basement. We go play a club, and then we were recorded and we had been co-located. And for a while, we kept trying to make that work. So we would meet in the winter and we might record an album and then we get together in the summer, we go on tour. In between, I would write songs and then we'd start to work them into the rotation. And we did that for a really long time and we made it work, but it's difficult. And you know how it is. Try to get 5 or 6 people together for anything is hard. If they're professionals, it's even harder. And if they're all over the world, well, then, man, that gets really difficult. So when the pandemic hit, 2020, I got on the phone with Paul and I said, "Hey, Paul, what would we need to do if we wanted to record an album, but in isolation so that, I could record the part at my house. We'd move to the next person, we'd move to the next person, move to the next person." And we worked out what was a workflow. Paul said, "No, it's no problem. Here's how it would work." And we started putting together a bunch of singles during that period of time, and about a dozen of them, something like that. And we cranked them out. I mean, we were all of us very adept at computers. We all had home studios, and we were able to get some stuff out. And then we pulled that into an album called the Pandemic Singles, and that's turned into a method that the Balboas can continue to be productive and creative when we're not even in the same place and at our leisure. So it's allowed us to relax a little bit. Whereas, the last live thing that we did, we recorded a full-length album in LA. I'm in the middle of the fucking air, and when I get a text from Dusty that says, "I have COVID, I can't be there." And so our drummer is no longer going to go to the recording. Well, that's stressful. I just flew a whole band out to LA and we got to get it done. And I just texted Jimmy and just said, "Dude, you're up. You are now," because we were going to start working Jimmy in. And now we're like, "No, man, it's your gig. You got to get it done." And he did. He did a great job. And I love that record. It's a really good record, but it's stressful to try to spend a lot of money, get everybody in one place. Whereas when you're doing it at home, it's just more relaxed.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're entering into one particular topic that I'm very interested in, which is the topic of recording and the pros and cons of recording in different contexts. So, from your experience, then, because I've interviewed people who do a lot of stuff in home studios. I've interviewed people who do, recordings in expensive studios. Like I interviewed Dave and Paula Lombardo for their Venomoris project. And that was really interesting to talk with him
Yeah,
about,
yeah.
like, the aspect of recording different places. And he was sort of saying, like, well, if you're going to have drums, you kind of need, like, if you want to get the most out of it, you want to have a big studio for that. Like, but, on the other side, I've interviewed people who are like, well, I can basically do everything that I want from home. So what's your take on that sort of the
Yeah.
balance between the two sides?
Yeah, I think you can go either way just fine. When we first started recording, we were just broke. We didn't have any money. It's like your typical kid punk band. So we had to go be really rehearsed. You'd go into the studio and you bang out an album and mix it in a weekend. You better be tight. You better be ready to go live if you're going to do that. That's style. But you get these really sweet mistakes that occur. So we did this song back in the day. It's on our first record. It's called Grandma Sandbox. And this song is supposed to end at one point, but it didn't. And everybody just looks up and we knew like, oh shit. Okay, we got to get this plane on the ground. And it's one of the most creative things we've ever done because we were just holding it together to finish the song. And you get those beautiful moments if you're doing it when you're all live, these unexpected kind of things. But the style that we're doing now, I wouldn't say it's superior, but it's different in that on most songs, I will write the initial guitar part and then I hand it to Dusty and then he hands it to Kate and it goes down the line, down the line, down the line. Sometimes Rick gets it last, many times it's Mark. You don't know what song you're going to get because it's changing each time someone adds something.
Yeah.
And if I didn't trust them 1,000%, that would bug me. But I've worked with these people 30 years. I know exactly what they're going to do. I mean, in my head, I know what that song's going to sound like in the end or an approximation of it. Uh, but it's different. It's really different. And so when I go to write a song, I have all the degrees of freedom in the world. I can do anything I want. When Rick is doing it, he has less. He has to fit into this existing song pattern. So he's literally having a different experience than I'm having
Yeah.
when we're writing the song. And is that better? No, it's just different. And we figured out a way to do both. And what we do is we just adapt. The Balboas have to be very opportunistic because we don't have every Saturday to hang out with each other and figure it out. We take what opportunities are there and then we make it work. And we've got a lot of experience, so it doesn't shake our tree. If you said, "Oh, you got to go do this live," okay, cool. If we got to do it in a, one by one in a studio, no worries, we could do that too.
Yeah. And something also from a sort of like nerdish completist point of view, because looking on various different websites, I mean, you've got your website. There's Bandcamp. There's an entry on Discogs. I think you're on Rate Your Music as well. How many releases have you actually had?
Oh, more than 30. Uh, there are a lot of Balboa's records that are out there. Now, some of those are full length. I think this is our seventh full length record that we put together. There's a number of EPs, a whole bunch of singles, but I think we're above 30 at this stage.
And in terms of like when you've got a release to put out, what are your thoughts about, well, this is kind of particularly relevant in the current streaming age about formats and how you want the music to come out and what's practical?
Yeah, I'd say these days we have slipped into what is digital releases, not exclusively, but it's our primary release. And the main reason is that, to put out a vinyl record is really expensive. And if you're not touring, you're just going to lose money. Nobody listens to CDs anymore. Like my grandma might have a CD player. I have one, but I'd have to find it. I don't even. So it makes sense to play to your audience to a certain extent. It is difficult. Mark and I had this conversation the other day because when we first started this gig, unless you had something in your hand, it wasn't putting out a record. It hadn't made it to that final stage yet. And for an old guy like me, there's the tug of, boy, we should get this pressed. And I have to just be disciplined and say, no, man, that's resources we could spend on something else. And we could just put out more music. So yeah, I appreciate the physical formats. And they all have their charm and they all have their place. But it doesn't fit into what we're doing very much, which is different people in different places. We're not touring. So you're not putting merch out.
Yep.
Uh, that's a part of the whole touring gig is you got to have merch. And
Yep.
if you're not touring, then merch is less relevant.
Yep. No, no, that totally fits with what a lot of people have said to me in interviews. I mean, that was also going to be another question of like, what has then been in recent times your sort of live activity?
I would say the biggest one that we have coming up, and so we did a similar one not long ago, but we have a fun project coming up. I'll tell you about it, and I'm sure the joke will still work, but it's called Live in Japan, and I don't know if you recall this or not. You strike me as a younger fella, but in the '70s there was a thing where bands were putting out these fake live albums. So
Oh, right.
Kiss
Okay. I
did
mean, I
it.
know, I know about Typo Negative doing it, but that was a long time later.
Yeah. So they're not the first. A bunch of people have done it. So I started having this idea. It was Mark. Mark was the one. He had an accent that he was using on this version of Pipeline that we're going to record, and it was Japanese, like the old Ventures records. And I thought, oh, let's do one of those. Let's do live in Japan. And we were originally going to record it in Little Tokyo in LA, and then the LA fires happened. So I started thinking about it. And there's a studio here where I live that has green screen capabilities where you could put anything you want behind you. And I started thinking, oh man, we could have anime and kaiju movies and martial arts movies and all of this shit that we could put in to a Live in Japan record and just have fun with it and make it so obvious that it was neither live nor in Japan that no one would be like, oh, you guys are trying to fool us. Is it clearly over the top, which is kind of our brand. It's just ridiculous, audacious kind of stuff. That tends to be what we do. So this record is out in a couple of days, I guess. And then I'll take a little bit of time off just to let my brain heal after pushing out an album, and then we'll get started on that. When will that be out? Yeah, it's probably a year away, maybe more. But the next big Balboa's live thing we will be recording live in the studio. You will see us on stage in the studio, but what is going on behind us is clearly not live.
Yeah. So you're not immediately going to have any live shows directly after the album coming out.
No, I don't think we'll do any that will support this particular album. I think the main reason is just coming off of this album and getting everybody together. To put the Balboas in one room, you have to give it almost a 1 year lead, maybe 6 months, because so for instance, he's on tour right now with Nashville Pussy. Where's he at? Fuck if I know. I mean, I haven't kept track of it that close, but I just met him in Orlando a few weeks ago to talk to him. Okay, Jimmy is then on tour with somebody. He's supporting his surf trio. He could be in Europe. He's in Europe 2, 3 times a year. So you got to put it way out if you want to get everybody in the same room. So like doing something, if you said, Rich, could you play tomorrow for $1 million? I would say, damn, nope, sorry. It's just couldn't be done.
Yeah. On the financial side of things, so from what we've been talking about, it sounds like certain members of the band would call themselves professional musicians.
Yeah.
Other people would maybe say that they have a career and then they fit the music into that. So like from your point of view, both from your experience and what you've seen for other people, at this point, like what potential is there to have music as a sustainable career?
I plan on doing it until I die. Am I going to make any money at it? No, but neither does anybody else. Anybody who tells you they do is full of shit. It's a rough life, in terms of being able to cobble together enough money to if as your primary gig.
Yeah.
It's tough to do, and there are people who do it. Dusty's done a great job of that. But even still, he's got side gigs he's got to do, and most people do. There's very few people that can do musically exclusively. So if you said, is it your career? I'll tell you this, more people have listened to my Balboa songs and have read papers for me as a professor. So I put a lot of time and I work really hard at it. How do I pay the bills? That professor gig sure helps. Being an international consultant is nice, and then we're able to shuttle some of that money back into the Balboas. And then when we do Balboa stuff, it's no big deal. Uh, if you had asked us when we first got started, there was a period where it was self-sustaining, but it was like you got no health insurance, you're living in motel rooms, eating fast food. Like sustainable is a funny word to use for that.
Yeah.
Uh, I remember Rick Fry had got so malnutritioned on a tour that his fingernails all fell off. It was the grossest thing you've ever seen in your entire life. He's playing guitar at night with like these reptilian stubs of fingers and putting super glue on them so there's enough hard skin there to fret the string and stuff. So is that sustainable? Well, clearly not. His fingernails fucking fell off. So you gotta find a way to put it all together. And we have a bunch of us are professors, and then you got people who are full-time musicians. She's split the middle. Katie runs what is a big theater in Akron and then is playing rock and roll at night. So we've all found a way to kind of cobble it together.
Now, taking a sort of an outside view, when you look at the way things are in terms of the music world, the music business,
Yeah, yeah.
would you say that it is like this in terms of not being easy at all, or maybe even possible for most people to make money? Is that because the money is being funneled off to other places where it could be going to the artists? Or like, what do you put that down to?
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly it's going somewhere. People have more money in their pocket, but it doesn't make it to the club. So we all know in terms of streaming services, everybody's getting what is a fraction of a penny per play. You're not making a lot of money there. Used to be if you were on tour and you sold a record for $9, you made $9. And so that went in your pocket. But now the other costs that are super high, okay, you got to get from city to city. You got to pay gas. You got to have a vehicle and it's got to be insured. And then you got to pay a hotel room. So everybody's taking a little cut. And the pay for bands hasn't gone up a penny since we first started touring. So, let's say you're playing in front of what is a pretty nice crowd. You got a crowd of 1,000 people or 1,500 people. You might walk out of there with a couple $1,000s. That's a good night because the next club you play in might only have 8 people. and you're walking out with $20, and that's not a one-off. That happens all the time, and it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to get an off night where you're not making any money, and then it's really tough. Everybody's taken a cut. Your money hasn't gone up. Instruments haven't got cheaper. Strings haven't got cheaper. Everything is more expensive. Unless you're a band that is playing in front of 1,000 people a night steady, it's really difficult to hold it together. Touring has got really expensive. Recording has got cheaper, but everybody can record. So now there's a glut of music that is out there. I'm sure you get a million people who say, "Oh, I want to be interviewed or I want to be reviewed," and your inbox is full all the time of links. Okay, well, so you could get your music out there, but can you make any money at it? It's tough. It's really tough to
Yeah.
do.
Having touched on the streaming aspect, and obviously there is, if we take Spotify as a current example, there's a lot of money going into Spotify, not a lot of money going to artists. So
Yeah,
there's an obvious downside there, but then on the other hand, there's the potential for getting an audience that you might not otherwise have, people get
exactly.
exposed to your music. So like, what's your overall view in terms of this new digital
Yeah,
online
yeah,
streaming
yeah.
age that we're in?
I'm happy with it, and I think there are points of contention a lot of people would have. But my goal as a musician was never to make a lot of money at it. I sort of knew that was a pipe dream and somebody's going to run off and be a rock star, but it isn't going to be me. I wanted to be heard. And that capability is wildly improved in the digital era. In that, I told you about the first punk band I was in. The people that knew that band were the people in the room. There was going to be 20 people who out of Kavanaugh's in Akron that might see us play. And that would be it. But I accidentally bumped into this the other day. The number of sales that we had, I had never looked at it, but there was more than 100,000 people. And there's a heat map. It showed like where they're all at. It's all over the fucking world. And does that make me happy? Absolutely. I'm thrilled to death at that. In that, there was a punk band from Mexico City that did a cover of one of our songs. I saw it on YouTube, and I thought, God, how cool is that? Just for a bunch of punk dipshits from Akron, Ohio, to have anybody around the world who knows our stuff is it's just lovely. It's just lovely. I go to Austria all the time. There's a beautiful city there. It's called Steyr, and my records are up on the ceiling. And I walk into a place and they're playing the Balboas, and it's so cool that people actually know your stuff and in different places in the world. So I love it. Would I change it if I could, if you said you can make $1 million tomorrow? Oh boy, I'm old, so $1 million should come in handy. But it's nice to get your music out there. It's
Yeah.
really nice to get your music out there.
And in terms of that perspective that you've got now and the way that you look at your musical position and the what you get from it, how does that compare to what your sort of expectations and your ambitions were when you first started making music? But let's just say with the Balboas specifically.
Sure, sure, sure. And the Balboas are, if you said, "Hey, Rich, what's your band?" It's the Balboas. I've been in other bands, but the Balboas is definitely where I put my time. Have I met my expectations? Have I exceeded them? I would say I've exceeded them wildly. I mean, I've had all these really fantastic experiences. So yeah, I've got to tour the whole United States. We've toured Europe. Uh, we played CBGBs, which, from a punk perspective, I don't can't even describe what that means to me to be able to do that. And we've recorded with just fantastic people, dozens and dozens of really incredible punk and surf artists that were kind enough to do things with us. And like I said, we're nobody. We're just a punk band from Akron. I never thought any of this would happen. My whole goal was to put a little stain on rock and roll. I wanted to somehow be remembered for something, a little contribution somewhere. And of course, yeah, we're no Van Halen. It's not like we're blowing it out. But boy, I think we left one hell of a stain. In what is our small little corner of the world, it's hard to scrub us out. It's hard to scrub us out. So I'm really happy with it. I can't believe I've been gifted this life to work with really good people and to learn so much. They're also smart and generous. So Paul has just introduced us to. I mean, if I started going down that list, it's just so long. It's just really, really great people. So I love it. I love everything about it.
So was it, now that you've mentioned that, was it through Paul that you ended up getting Mike Watt on the latest record?
Yeah, yeah. Paul knows him really, really well. So, Paul we'll just be talking about people and blah, blah, blah. Mike comes up and I just said, "Oh, you think he might be interested in doing something?" I don't know. I'll ask him. So Paul will ask anybody anything. And and then sometimes Paul will come to us and say, "Oh, this person would like to do this thing." Okay, well, great. We'll do that. Say Dusty does the same thing. Like Dusty's got a 50-year career. And the people that he's met, he knows a lot of people. So I said to him a couple of years ago, "Oh, I'm looking for this sort of Beach Boy sound. I'd love to get some backing vocals that are Beach Boys." She's like, "Joe Queer does a really good Beach Boys thing. Should I ask Joe?" I'm like, "Oh, that would be cool." And so, yeah, it's just it's a function of being old. We know we know people. We've been doing this for a really long time. So you run into people and you have conversations, and then the Balboas are a funny mix. I think we try to be friendly until we're not. And for the most part, we're going to be real friendly to people. So we make a lot of friends and it opens up doors.
Yeah. No, that's really, really cool. I mean, that sort of concept of community has definitely come up with other bands because I feel like as well, when you are working on a sort of DIY independent underground level, that's so important.
Yeah. Well, if you're touring the East Coast, if you're touring with a band, you're probably going to crash at their house that night. And then you know them. And then when they're out, you're going to see them coming through your town. And then they could stay at your house, or you're going to go grab a meal with them, or have a beer, late night beer, or something like that. So you get to know people when you're working with them. And you do that for a long enough time, and then, well, you discover what you like about them, or maybe more importantly, sometimes you discover what you don't like about them. Where you're like, I've met this guy 5 or 6 times. He's an asshole. I don't want to record with him.
Yeah. So, in terms of the release of Bite Blood Repeat, and not just the release, but other releases from the Balboas, where should people go? Is Bandcamp the best place to go? Are there other places for them to get hold of it?
You can go anywhere there's digital releases, so if you went to, the iTunes Music, or if you're at Spotify, or you can get it off Bandcamp, but anywhere they digitally release music, you're going to find Balboa stuff. And all of our records are available on those outlets. So if you go to any of them and search Balboas, you're going to find our stuff.
Nice. Well, Rich, thank you very much. It was a great pleasure to talk to you. It was
Thank you,
great to
Tom.
get
Yeah, it
your
was very nice talking
insights
to
and your
you.
stories.
Thank you
And
very much.
yeah, until the universe decides that our paths cross again, all the best.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hopefully that'll happen. But thanks for the opportunity. It was great to talk to you.
Thanks a lot, Rich. All the best.
Take care. Bye bye.